A blessed good day to you, my dear friends. Here in the middle of this week, in the middle of the day, we stop. Whatever has been the trajectory or the movement of your thoughts and feelings, we just step back from them and breathe them all out so that we can breathe in the Word of God in this very, very beautiful psalm, Psalm 47. It just occurred to me this time round in all the cycles of readings and psalms and so on in the Bible through the seasons, that this will always occur on the week of Christ the King Sunday, the last Sunday in the year. It's all about God's kingship and God's rulership, God's sovereignty. At the beginning of year A, almost a year ago now, in Advent of last year, we began each Wednesday with a psalm in chronological order. And we read from Psalm 1, 2, 3. We haven't recorded them here yet. But then when we came to Lent, we stopped for 5 weeks to do what are called the ascending psalms, or the psalms of approach, as our ancestors, pardon me, moved from wherever they were up to Jerusalem. The Psalms of Ascent. So we stopped for 5 of those. So if you add those 5 to 47, we're up to 52, which is the completion of year A and the movement of this cycle, 3-year cycle of readings. So let's begin with some silence. So we clear a space. We become quiet. Feel the position that you're in, whether you're seated or whether you're lying down. Feel a kind of center of gravity in your body. Feel that center point where you are connecting with the earth and connecting with a union with your body has as you relax. And as you breathe out simple breaths of surrender. Take a good deep breath first, and then let it out slowly, like this beautiful prolonged sigh that centers you. I'd like to share now the fire starter. Well, before we do that, let's do our 30 seconds of quiet. So here we go. Let's just all listen to the silence. You know, when we listen to the silence and direct our attention to it, in one sense, we automatically put into a perspective whatever thoughts or feelings are overwhelming us, perhaps. Because the attention on the silence is the attention on the background of what you're feeling and experiencing. And that helps to disengage from it. It's almost like a beautiful landscape in a way, a landscape which has the sky and the earth and the trees, and you watch that, and that becomes something to center you, to just temporarily distract you from all that might be interrupting you. So I'm going to share now the fire starter that I wrote some years ago, in this version for the Bible Through the Seasons for families with children. It's called Clapping for God's Creation. The year I graduated from high school, I entered a religious order called the Jesuits. We were called novices for the first 2 years, a word that means new. The seminary was high above the Hudson River in Hyde Park, New York. Every evening we used to take a walk to see the river. One evening, a novice said, "How come we only applaud when someone performs? Why don't we clap for God's beautiful creation, like that tree over there?" We began to applaud the tree, then doing the same for other ones. It seemed as though the more we clapped, the more we enjoyed the beauty of each tree. We had such fun. How about doing the same when you're taking a walk with your family? Might seem a little bit weird, but that's part of the fun. For those who live in the northern hemisphere, it's autumn, when the year comes to an end. How about clapping your hands for God, who did such a beautiful job in making the world? Here now is Psalm 47, a short psalm, just 9 verses. Later I'm going to point out what you might say the architecture or the structure of the psalm and its center verse in verse 5. Clap your hands, all you people. Shout joyfully to God with a joyous shout, because the Lord Most High is awesome. He is the great King of the whole world. He subdues the nations under us, subdues all people beneath our feet. He chooses our inheritance for us, the heights of Jacob, which he loves. God has gone out with a joyous shout, the Lord with the blast of the ram's horn. Sing praises to God, sing praises to our King, sing praises, because God is King of the whole world. Sing praises with a song of instruction. God is King over the nations. God sits on his holy throne. The leaders of all people are gathered with the people of Abraham's God, because the earth's guardians belong to God. God is exalted above all. So there you have it. And there's that central verse 5, which is sort of like a hinge. The 4 verses before and the 4 verses after are these exuberant hymnic type of expressions. Here's verse 5 again. God has gone out with a joyous shout, the Lord with the blast of the ram's horn. So there's noise, there's clapping, there's the awareness that all the peoples are gathered around God's throne. And the psalm says, God's king over the whole earth. There is not any part or any nation that is not under God's sovereignty, God's loving hand, God's kindness, God's humility, God's graciousness. Isn't it a tragedy that all of the great denominations look to Abraham as part of their founding, and yet how divided we are, chopped up into religious traditions, chopped up into denominations, all chopped up. Nations chopping up each other. Nations that are all under God's domain. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I do appreciate the changes that are going on in our government right now. I think they're going to be for the better. And the one thing that John Kerry, who's going to be the climate czar or the envoy for climatic change, says that Joe Biden believes in God. He has faith in God. It's one of those rare moments that you hear something like that. And I wish there were more, because we don't refer, politicians typically don't refer to the source of their faith. And they need to. And so out of this deference, not to step on anybody's toes, we step back from that. And I appreciate, however small is the illusion of Mr. Biden's faith, it's in there. And I don't want to make this a political thing. I might as well just tell you that I am very pleased by the outcome, to say the least, of what has taken place. But I don't want to make this, any kind of argumentative thing. I'm not going to take on anybody that voted for Mr. Trump who might be listening to this meditation. Don't want to do that. But I'm hoping that we can just trust that God is moving forward as the signs of humility and confidence and competence begin to emerge from a very, very difficult period in our time past. So enough of that for now. But it's just really good for us to be able to pray for our nation, pray explicitly. And maybe if prayer and the consciousness of God were more a part of our conversation, we might be able to steer our way away from the partisan politics that are chewing us up. Maybe it's the absence of God from our discourse that's making this such a problem. And I don't mean we have to make sure prayer goes back to school. These are all kind of political sort of things. What I mean is prayer in the heart, prayer in the silence, prayer in the awareness that God is the sovereign ruler of all the earth, not with a heavy hand, but with the arms of love. So I'm hoping that we can really appreciate that each in our personal lives as we encounter the scriptures each day, as we encounter the readings from the Bible through the season in this plan to just take one passage a day and go into it, and maybe some of the Bible breaths that emerge from those scriptures, the kind of distillation of what God could be offering to us. This is a psalm that is traditional for Ascension Day. And Ascension Day, at the very end of the Lenten and Easter season, is the triumph of God. So it's kind of beautiful that at the end of Lent and Easter, there's Jesus our King. At the end of Kingdom Tide, as I call it, there is Jesus our King. I'm going to share with you now some of the Bible breaths that I offer for this particular psalm and see what. Remember that these Bible breaths are of 7 syllables. 3 syllables on the inhale, 3 on the exhale, and 1 for the rest in between the cycles of breathing. So here are 4 of them that I offer to you, and you can create your own or devise different ways of letting what strikes you in this psalm to touch you. From verse 1, all you nations, clap your hands. From verse 3, all nations under your power. From verse 6, sing praises to God our King. From verse 9, rulers putting down weapons. Lord, I thank you for this time I've shared with these good people, and I pray that as the rest of this week unfolds, your grace and peace would be with us, your wisdom would be with us, your joy would be with us, no matter what circumstances that we find ourselves in, that you are our God and the God of all the earth. Amen. God bless you. Happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. Have a safe one. Have a blessed one. And I look forward to being with you on Sunday as the cycle returns with the first Sunday in Advent. God bless you.